Hi, this is Hart, and what we have here are the supplies needed in order to turn this gutted book into a flow journal. And what I'm creating is 2 signatures, and this is similar, very, very similar to how you create a Midori style notebook, or what people also call traveler's notebooks. But in this case, I'm using this book to make a flow journal for myself. None of the cover or insides have been decorated yet, and all I've done is carefully gut the book. The first thing I want to do is show you what all these tools are that we're using. This is just decorative duct tape, and it's a normal duct tape. Actually, the brand is Duck, like the Quacker tape. I have an elastic, kind of thin. You can tell by the size of my fingers. I don't know the actual size of the elastic. It's different than the one I normally use. Got this at, I think it was Dollar Tree. I have myself a binder clip for when I start to sew. I have a button. The types of buttons I like to use are not the ones with the holes in the front. I like the buttons where you can actually fit your needle through a single hole that's in the back. And so you want to test this before you choose your button to make sure that your needle fits all the way through. And this one barely fits all the way through. Then you need your upholstery needle. There are many different kinds of upholstery needles that you can pick up. As you can see, I had a choice of these for $1, and this was purchased at the Family Dollar store. As my background that I'm poking through, this is cork. There's many different types of products. Just make sure you don't poke through into your skin. And underneath my cork, I have a cutting mat. So I'm going to move everything out of the way. So the first thing you want to do is measure your duct tape to fit the length of your spine. So when I go to check the length of my spine, I see that my spine is just at 7 inches. If I open my book up, if your book's in good enough shape to do it this way, then you can look at the inside of your spine. This is where my paper runs, and my paper runs here. I can see that I'll be completely comfortable running this at 6 3/4. And so it's hard for me to cut all the way at the 0 line, so I'm going to cut this at the 1. And I've already laid my duct tape out rather straight. If it's not perfect, it's not perfect. This book's for me. So here we go. I cut at the 1, and that's the 1 there. 1 plus 6 3/4 would be 7 3/4. And I cut there. So I have 1 inch of duct tape I can save and use for a different project. Then I have what I need to put onto my spine. There is no up or down on this, so I don't need to check that. But if you have a particular print to see which side is up or down, make sure you check your spine first. And all I'm going to do here is find my center, line it up best I can, rub it from the center out. And then to here. You can see that it's not perfect, but it's perfect enough for me. Now I want to see where my top is. That's my top. If you want to cover up your spine on both sides, you can do that now. I'm over 7 inches long. I want it to have an overlap. So my measurement is going to be 7 inches long, plus 1/4 on this side, and 1/4 on that side. So I'll be 7 1/2 inches long. Because I'm going to cut an angle on both sides, I'll add another 1/2 inch for that. So I will be 8 1/2 inches long that I'm cutting here. So I'm going to start my tape just past the 9 1/2. I have my ruler. The reason I started it just past the 9.5 is because I want to cut at line 1. You don't have, it just all depends on what your cutting style is, what you prefer. Okay. And we're going to go all the way to 9.5 and cut there. Now, because I don't like things to be perfect, you could probably do this in one move for yourself, but I want to show you this, how I like it to blend on the inside for me. So what I'll do is, do you see how this is a perpendicular line? I don't want it to be perfectly perpendicular. I'm going to take it from this corner to the first quarter or the second quarter of an inch. Or if you're measuring in centimeters, just give yourself the same angle both ways. And that's all I'm doing here. I'm taking it from that corner at a slight angle. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because if you don't line it up perfect, it looks better. So in this case, I don't want to go in the same direction. I want to go in the opposite direction. So I'm now going to go to my second half there, and then on this line. I just want a little bit of an angle. And again, I pull that extra up. So all I've done is I've cut a 1/2 inch on either side, my angle. So if you see my book, I still have room on both sides that when it rolls over my book, that I have extra space that's going to flip over the book. So let's do this. Let's pull this out. Take the top side, move my stuff out of the way so I can lay it fairly flat. And you want to make sure that you try to get it as centered as you can and lay it down. I like to do the duct tape first because if I layer paper over the top, then I can measure the paper to be perfect to the book. Some people use Tyvek. There's many different kinds of ways to strengthen the binding on your book. So now you can see what I was talking about the angle. So I don't have it perfect on the inside here lined up exactly the same way, and that's okay. Get pretty darn close, and here, you see how that's a little bit off? That's where you can come in with a sharp pair of scissors. It lines up just fine. Most of it's hidden after you put your pages in anyway. It looks like you lined it up perfect, and then that cut angle looks so much cleaner than if it was straight across, because you're never, or at least I'm never perfect. So in this case, here you go. You've got it coming down, but I can see that I'm a little bit short on this side. So I can come down this way, see how far short I am, and just do a little bit of a trim up. And that's okay. When it comes down, looks nice and clean. Finished. Okay, so now my spine is quite strong. And what I'm going to do next, after cleaning up some of my duct tape mess, put my cork in place. Keep the button handy so I don't forget. We're going to measure this. I have my button handy, it's just below the book. this spine. I want 2 holes at the top and I want 2 holes at the bottom. And for those of you who want to put a binding around it, you can put 1 hole in the middle, but for this particular book, I do not want that. So make sure I'm centered on the screen for you. And this is where your awl comes in, AWL. This I picked up at Walmart for $3 or $4. And you have hole 1. That's why I use cork also. Then you have hole 2. The cork gives me a place to safely poke my awl. And the reason I put the cutting mat behind it is because I don't want to damage anything. Now I'm going to poke my second one. Want to line it up. Some people draw this out. I wing it. 1, 2. You just don't want your holes to overlap each other. You can do that. And you have a little bit of space. If they're not perfect, just lean back, make your hole a little bit bigger. It'll be fine. Now they're perfect. Ish. So I have my hole up top, hole down bottom. I have my elastic. Well, if I have 2 holes here and I know I want to end up having a bookmark, then I want to make it 3 times the length of the spine plus a little extra. Because you got to tie knots and all, and it's got to go in the back and all. So here's my spine. 1 time, don't stretch your elastic when you're measuring. 1. Let me just stretch some extra off the cord and do this again. The elastic, I'll measure it here so you can see it better. 1 time the length of the spine. 2 times the length of the spine. 3 times the length of the spine. And a little extra. So then I take my scissors and I cut that extra. Now if that didn't make any sense to you, let me show you in this form. So I go once, then I count a 2nd length of the spine, then I count a 3rd length of the spine, and I have just a little extra. So 1 length of the spine, 2, and 3, not cutting it in between. Does that make sense? The reason is to make sure you have plenty of extra. And I want to start my hole from the inside. That's what this binding clip is for. It's to make sure that it doesn't come out. So what I do is I just clip. If I can get it around it, there we go. Clip it on so it doesn't pull through. That's all this binding clip is for. So let's get our needle. This is the top, this is the bottom. This is hole 1, hole 2. Make sure you're perfectly in frame here. Hole 3, hole 4. So left to right, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to start in hole 1. We're going to thread. I can pull this off now. So I go into hole 1, from the inside of the book to the outside. This is just my extra for when I tie the knots at the end. Now that I'm on the outside of the book, I go through and I want to make sure that I am upright on whatever upright looks like for my button. And I'm inside for my button, and my button is now upright. So then I go into hole 2 from the outside of the book. And I'm going to show it to you this way. Do you see? So I start from the inside on hole 1. It continues on, and I'm outside of the book, and then I go into hole 2. You can see here, it's coming back on the inside. My button helps. Then I go down to the bottom, and now I'm at hole 4. Down on the bottom, I push it through from the inside to the outside. And then from the outside of the book, you can see it's now my book's upside down, I go into hole 3. And so from the outside of the book to the inside, I'm coming into hole 3. You see, I'm into hole 3. So first you put it from the inside of the book. First you put it from the inside of the book into hole 1, from the outside of the book into hole 2. It comes all the way down from the inside of the book out to hole 4, and from the outside of the book into hole 3. Then I go back up to the top. Now that I'm going back up to the top, I have a string to worry about that I'm working with. So I want to pull it down a little bit and make it go above that string because I don't want to poke my needle through the string. So I'm going from the inside of the book to the outside of the book from hole 1. And so you should have at this point 2 long bands in the middle. Okay? I'll put something white behind it so you can see. Put something white behind it so you can see. You have 2 bands in the middle. Now that I'm on the back side of the book, I want to go through my button. So I go through my button a second time. Hope I picked a needle that can make it through twice. And I did. So it goes through my button a second time. Then I want to come back into hole 2 to the inside of my book. It's that simple. And look, I have enough elastic left over to make a bookmark. But it's not knotted off yet. I'm going to knot it off now. So I'll demonstrate on the right hand side to show you how easy it is to knot off. Lay your thread up and on the outside. Then put your finger through underneath. And you want to bring the thread back through this hole you just created in that circle inside, and you pull it up. One may not be enough, so do it again. So you lay it over the top, you reach in underneath, and you grab that thread and you pull it back up to the top a second time. Then you have extra thread for your bookmark, extra elastic for your bookmark. Let's do it on the left side. It's a little bit smaller, harder to demonstrate, but it works in the same manner. So you see that it goes around. You see that it starts up here, it goes around. I just tucked it underneath, and I pull it up. I do the same thing twice. It's not a perfect knot, but it stays pretty well. It's no laughing at me, but I learned to make that style of knot when I was making friendship bracelets. That's the end. This is an elastic 2 signature way, and you can see this is what your top looks like. You can choose a smaller button if you choose. And your bottom is so simple. It's so hidden. And that's it. Now, if I want to put paper inside, then all I do is I lift it up, slide the paper through, and this is now a flow journal. This piece over time can just be tucked under. That's it. The other side works exactly the same way. And these, I'll show you how simple it is. Let me run this through for one more time for you. So you go into hole 1 from the inside of your book. It goes to the outside. It goes through your button. Then you go from the outside of your book through hole 2. You're going to have one loose strand here, then you pull it all the way through, comes down to hole 4. And that's what creates this first piece. After you come down to hole 4, you go from the inside of your book to the outside of your book on hole 4. And that's where you are. Then you go from the outside of your book on hole 3 to the inside of your book. And then you're here. So you want to finish this string and you go back through hole 1. And that's what allows you to create that simple loop. When you've gone back through hole 1, you go through your button a second time because you're on the outside of your book. You come back onto the inside of your book through hole 2, and it gives you a nice long thread. This elastic thread then needs to be knotted on this line, and you can leave an amount for your bookmark or you can trim it off. This elastic thread also needs to be knotted, otherwise you will lose it. Great. Thank you for watching, and hopefully this 2-signature book, which is also the way many Midoris and traveler notebooks work, but it works beautiful for when you're making your own personal flow journal. Thank you for watching. Take care.